This is Luther Burbank. It used to be called Luther Burbank Junior High School. Is it a middle school now? Yeah, now it's Luther Burbank Middle School. But when I was here from 1968 to 71, it was Luther Burbank Junior High School. I had a miserable time here. Seventh and eighth grades are usually pretty bad. They're often bad for students. I don't think anybody really looks upon those years, but mine were just awful. I didn't get along with other students. Instead of going to lunch, I would take refuge in the library and read a book. And I remember they used to hang a sign during lunchtime outside the library door. And when the library was open, they would hang out a white sign, and I knew I could go in and read a book during lunch. When the library was closed, for whatever reason, they would hang a red sign out, and I distinctly remember walking down the hall and fretfully looking at the sign and seeing that it was red and feeling very crestfallen and disappointed. As it turns out, I checked out a book from here in ninth grade under the name Tom Godwin. It was a medieval book. It was something about castles or something like that. And I checked it out with a false name, and essentially I stole the book. And Tom Godwin has always been my alter ego name for when I was planning on doing something wrong. Fortunately, I haven't used it all that often, maybe a couple of times in my life. I was Tom Godwin. And yes, by the way, I got the name Godwin from Harold Godwinson in the Battle of Hastings, 1066, because I was interested in English history at the time. So the library is about that, where that set of display cases is. It's just to the right of that. I believe that's the library entrance. That was one of my hangouts. Another hangout is over here. This is where I would sit every morning waiting for the first class to start with my friend Stephen Kearney. I think it was Steve Kearney. He was a nerd, I was a nerd. We would sit around this stupid bee. Somehow we always heard music. I don't remember where it came from. Somebody had a radio or something. And I remember hearing one of the hits that we always heard was Soulful Strut. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. That song. I like it these days, but I do not like the times that I spent at the school. That's the boys' vice principal's office down there where that second green sign is to the left of that. If you are going there, you are not having a good day. The school tradition here at Luther Burbank was don't step on that wasp. That mosaic tile wasp. Anyway, age 12, 1968, not an especially good year at this school. This is another part of Luther Burbank. This is where all of the students park their bikes, chain them up to the bike rack, and this is where my 1968 Schwinn Stingray was stolen from a bike rack right in this yard. So what happened was a detective actually found the bike, but by then we had gotten me a replacement Schwinn that was not a Ramshorn Fastback 5-speed, and we gave my bike to some deserving family, from what I understand. This is the Luther Burbank Gymnasium. I never ever had a good time here. This whole school was like one tour of misery from start to finish. But the thing I primarily remember about this was they had a great big rope that they hung from up there, and you had to climb up it. I was actually good at it. It was sort of like the only thing I ever achieved in this school that I was proud of myself for doing.
They don't do that.
All right, another passage at Luther Burbank and another story. I had a class over there to the right one time, up on that elevated classroom. I guess you can't see it, but there's a walkway, there's stairs over to the right, and that's the classroom. And I remember that class because I was sitting next to a kid named Tom, Thom Smith. And at the time, I was reading about King Arthur and Galahad and all that, and he was a heavy, big-time Christian. And he used to, in fact, he signed my yearbook, Thom, Thom, within the outline of a Christian fish. Anyway, so I'm reading King Arthur, and I had made mention to him. I said, I'm like Galahad. I'm perfect and without fault. And he looked at me and he said, do you attend church? No, I did not. Okay, Thom, you got me. So I'm not so perfect. So that's my story about that.